Thank you all for coming. It's really great to see you and to be here. It's my first research evening. I joined Oracle in September last year, and I joined because my father had head and neck cancer. He had sinus cancer, and my husband is an ENT surgeon, and it was in my life. And when the opportunity came to join the Oracle team, I thought it sort of brought together some of my skills that I had gained in the corporate world, but also it was a very personal journey. And when I joined, I spoke to a lot of the different supporters and stakeholders, different charities, many of you in the crowd here today, to our board, to clinicians, and I spent a lot of time with Peter. And we talked, and I tried to really understand what was Oracle doing right, where were the gaps, what could we do more of, how well was head and neck cancer understood, and where were the treatment advances, and where was there things that we could do better. And we ran a survey during that time as well, and I'm going to show you a few results of that today. So we surveyed, we had 156 patients responding, and we had 46 clinicians in another survey that responded. And it was really interesting to get all the different feedback about what is working, what is not working, where do patients need support, more support, where do clinicians need support, and how can we actually bring all the different people closer together. And I think that's been a real focus of ours at Oracle, is trying to really make sure that we're focusing and working in the right areas. As most of you know, head and neck cancer is the 4th most common cancer in men in the UK, and it's the 8th most common cancer across all population groups. But nobody knows about it. When I tell people I work at Oracle Cancer Trust and I'm in head and neck cancer, they just look at me quite blankly. And I think that's something we really need to address. We need to make sure that head and neck cancer is better understood, better known, but also that the signs and symptoms are better understood by the general public and by the high-risk communities. And who are the high-risk communities? Do we even know who the high-risk communities are? So we need to know more about them as well. And we need to make sure that dentists, GPs, and primary healthcare professionals, and all those that will foresee those symptoms actually understand them, that they recognize them, so that then those patients get to the specialists, who we're going to hear from today, and others, and actually get treated faster. So there's so much work we can do in terms of making sure that early diagnosis occurs. And then once those patients are in treatment, making sure they get the right treatment, they get personalized treatment, that they actually have treatment that focuses on quality of life outcomes, not just survivorship, and that their patient experience and that their side effects are as minimal and as positive, that their experience is as positive as possible. So that's another whole area, a huge amount of work that we need to work on, and a lot of the research that is being presented today, which is really fantastic, and it's so motivating for us at Oracle to see the output of all these research grants that you and others have contributed to see how it's going to positively contribute to the patient's outcomes and the treatment pathways. And then once the treatment is completed, the post-treatment support, making sure that the patients get the right support, and making sure that actually their quality of life post-treatment is, again, as comfortable and positive as possible. So, as I mentioned, what I thought I would do is just show you some of the results of the survey that we ran. So as I mentioned, we ran a survey in late 2021, early 2022. We had 156 patients and caregivers, and this was a free form answer. So it wasn't that we put these options and they voted for them. These are what people actually contributed to. And you can see here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it was there's quite interesting, you can see the groupings. So in terms of the top 3 priorities for improving diagnosis, it's getting to the right specialist faster. Then it's greater awareness of GPs and dentists. Many of the patients that responded to this and caregivers said they did go to a dentist or they did go to the GP and they were turned away. So making sure that those GPs and dentists and primary healthcare professionals can recognize the symptoms when they first present. And then also making sure that they have quicker scans and quicker results. So those are the top 3, but there's some other really interesting ones as well, and we're going to hopefully publish the results of this survey once we analyze it further. But you can see here what a lot of you contributed to and what the patients generally sort of feel are the top 3 priorities in terms of improving the diagnosis experience. So we're moving on to the top 3 priorities for improving the experience of treatment. So having more and better information once diagnosed. Again, what is head and neck cancer? It doesn't even exist, really, head and neck cancer, because actually head and neck cancers is comprised of 30 different cancers, which can present in 14 plus sites. So, when you're diagnosed with a head and neck cancer, that doesn't really happen. You're diagnosed with a particular subset of that cancer. And then you go onto Google or you get some information, and it's quite scary. What does it mean? What is your treatment going to entail? What is your results going to entail? So it's a really scary experience, and there's lots of patient support groups which we partner with, and there's lots of information, but we can be better at providing that information. So that's another big area of improvement that this survey has identified, but also we've definitely heard from those that we work with. And post-treatment support starts immediately. And actually, a lot of the responses weren't even that they start immediately. The post-treatment support is planned pre-treatment. So actually, you already know pre-treatment that you're going to get the support that you need post-treatment, and that's already in place, so that you're not left hanging post-treatment, that actually you know where to go and what services are available to you. So a lot of other responses here, which are quite interesting, and I think merit further review, but just picking out the top 3 that came out from our survey. And post-treatment support. So the top 3 priorities for post-treatment support was that it's more visible. So that patients actually know, or caregivers know, that there is post-treatment support. Because again, you have your treatment, and then if you're lucky, you go home, or if not, you're still in the hospital, but you're not aware of what the post-treatment support services are. And there's lots of different post-treatment support services, but there needs to be more information, more general awareness about those services. And actually, this is another big area where there's a big postcode lottery in terms of the different services. So if you live in a certain postcode, you get certain post-treatment support. If you live in a different postcode, you get different post-treatment support. And it's actually that's where I also think the peer group support can really help you navigate that, because it can be quite difficult. Patient support being faster and more targeted to individuals. Again, that sort of falls into the same category, but actually it not being sort of anonymous and just for the general. Everyone has a different experience, and as I said, and as we all know, head and neck cancers isn't really a thing. There's individual cancers within there, so every patient has a different need, and it's actually really about understanding what their particular situation, type of cancer, stage of diagnosis, and other details are, so to make sure they get what they really need. And then the more active signposting and access to peer support and support groups. So these exist, but does everyone know about them? Does everyone actually get information about them? And also every patient will want to have access and to access those peer support groups at different stages, in different formats, and in different times. So it's about making sure that support is made available and understood.